Welcome to Let's Talk. Here we will focus on the hustle, the juggle, and everyday struggle of small business. We will be here every week talking to small business owners about their everyday struggles, stresses, and ways they have been able to overcome the challenges of running their business. We welcome questions and comments, so please feel free to email us at admin@PlemonsCPA.com. We hope you enjoy, and above all, we hope it helps. Welcome to today's show, The Hustle, Juggle, and Struggle of Small Business. I am Thalia Williams, your host. Today we have in our studio a very amazing young man by the name of Ryan Saltz. Ryan, welcome.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here. It's nice to see you after what feels like 47 years.
It feels like it, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. So tell us about your organization and who are you partnered with?
Yeah, so as Thalia said, my name is Ryan. I'm the director of Launch SA. It's an entrepreneurship center located in downtown San Antonio at the Downtown Central Library. But don't go there right now because closed, unfortunately, right? So COVID. We partner with everybody. So, and that sounds like, really vague and probably everybody's like, oh yeah, we partner with everybody. But the reality of that is that's the nature of our model, right? So we started back in 2014. And the ethos is essentially we're the connectory. We're like a 311 for small business. I claim to know nothing except who you should talk to. I probably know a little bit more than that. I'm just not letting it on. But the reality is, like, I could have all the answers, but you probably don't want to hear them from me. You'd probably rather hear them from somebody that's either lived the experience themselves or is an expert in that field, right? Like I'm a really great generalist, right? I like to say I'm sort of the jack of all trades. Sometimes I even like to say I'm the guy that knows a guy. In small business specifically, that's probably right. But so the realization is our staff is 2 people, myself included in that too. And we, on a normal year, would serve about 4,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it's I would say pretty astounding. You think 4,000 people is crazy. But the model is such that we're not able to spend all that time. So the best use of the time is to figure who is actually out there willing and able to spend the time to educate small business owners, relate, establish a relationship, and really get them moving forward. So that can be almost anybody. So we've developed a mentor network that's about 200, 250 folks, all industries, all backgrounds, walks of life. And they have really come to the call. There's this kind of saying that one of our participants, program or members, if you will, has always said, the rising tides raise all boats. It's a pretty common saying for what it's worth. But the goal of that is truthfully, you might be in the same exact industry as someone else, but if you don't exist, then they have less of a market, right? Think about, you go to a food truck park. I like to use food examples, but think about a food truck park. You wouldn't really go to a park that had one truck. It'd be pretty boring.
True. You
want to go to a place that has options, right? You wouldn't go to a downtown center that has one bar. That would be boring. Not all that great of a night, So even if you start out at one bar and the bar right across the street happens to be the same place, right? There's going to be something different. Like the people in that one are different. Atmosphere is different. Something on the wall is different. Service is different. And I mean, maybe they sell the exact same stuff. But again, if those guys close down, you, the other business owner across the street, you don't automatically already have like 100% more business or 50% more business. You probably have 50% less or 100% less because I started at one place and I went to the other. So that's the concept. We get people to buy into that statement, which is like, it's about the community. The other saying that this one guy says, probably his more popular saying, one team, one goal. Mm-hmm. And I truly believe that's really the mission of what we're trying to do is establish like the San Antonio small business ecosystem should be one team. And the goal should be to lift up others towards that same success. Success can be measured in a billion different ways. I'm not going to say that everybody that we work with is on the track to being a millionaire. I think that would just be false direction because maybe you just want to have one little taco shop and that's fine, right? I don't need to give you the master plan to be a Chili's, right? That would be a waste of your time. Honestly, True. It wouldn't work. And, so whatever your vision is, that's where we try to sink down, right? It's where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And then who within our network, right? Whether that's, another business advisory group like SBDC, or maybe a space that has certain, amenities like a Geekdom or Maestro Center or something like that, or Impact Guild. Where do you align with who you are, and who's going to be your crowd that will be able to surround you with the right stuff? So that's that's a long tail that's just base level, right? And then on top of that, we do programs and stuff like that. I try not to, everybody says this in town, right? So we all try not to duplicate services.
Hard to do.
It is, right? And so my mantra about that entire situation is really just like, if it doesn't exist and there's a market for it, I will make it. If someone else is out there doing it, then I'll send you that direction. If I hear that, there's still a gap within those services, then we will figure out how we can support that gap. Maybe that's one-off seminars. Mm-hmm. Maybe that's a little bit more in-depth. Maybe it's a few that kind of run together as a series. And, again, if there's a large enough market, maybe there's a program to be established. And we've had success with our programmatic building. So, the education that we put together, the network, the partners, the support, we've seen tractionable outcomes from it. Right before we started, when we were kind of just riffing back and forth, I mentioned like the biggest key is the people you surround yourself with, right? I think a lot of people would kind of sit on that and be like, oh, man, I need to surround myself with, like, I don't know, the guy that started the Pearl, or, the guy that started Rackspace, or
Grant Weston.
Exactly. Yeah. All of these extremely wealthy dudes that are, or, gals that are out there and have, built themselves up as a brand. Well, there's a couple problems with that. Number one is accessibility. Like, hey, they got a lot going on, right? And then number two is, relevancy. Mm-hmm. And when I say relevancy, yes, they've built up this, amazing background. However, a lot of times that happened maybe a few years ago. I don't want to overdate them, but yeah, it happened a while back. And, it's just not going to be as relevant as it would be if you were to talk to somebody in the thick of it right now, right? True. Those people may not be millionaires, right? But I guarantee that they've stumbled over about 87 blocks before where you are, right?
Right.
So, and they're going to be more accessible, right? Because they're still trying to figure it out, right? And there's more opportunity for partnership. There's more opportunity for growth. Maybe they become a good friend. Maybe they become a good partner, collaborator. Maybe you get a job with them down the road, or they get a job with you down the road, right? All of that is great, but it's that level of camaraderie, that level of sort of cohort building, entrepreneurs working with other entrepreneurs is the biggest key. And one last piece before I end my long diatribe, right, is that we all in the entrepreneurship world feel like we're alone. It's a super common problem. We always think like, hey, what we're doing is so unique. No one's ever done this before. It feels real within yourself, right? But the reality is, look around yourself. Like, hey, I started a burger restaurant. Like, no one's ever felt my pain. It's like, I don't know. How
many burger restaurants are there?
Go around the corner. Like, there's probably a few. So, and a lot of people feel like, oh, I don't know, they're going to judge me or they're not going to help me and stuff like that. Be surprised. Like, they're just as lonely as you. Plus, they don't get to talk about these things with other people.
Because a lot of people don't understand unless they're an entrepreneur themselves. Exactly,
right. I find it at times hard to think about who do I talk to about the work I do, because there's very few people that would do the work that I do. So, you're lonely in the sense that there's not a whole lot of people you can relate with, but you're also not looking at the people that are doing it.
Correct.
Don't think about your local friend group as like your only outlet. Go find other entrepreneurs and hash it out. Like that's where you're going to build. And honestly, that level of support, connecting you with other people doing it right now, has been the biggest component of success for entrepreneurs that we've seen.
Okay.
It's not simply the education or the programmatic elements or, hey, you've gotten 10 words from, a millionaire, billionaire, or whatever. It's those lasting relationships that carry you forward. And we've just seen it to work. People stay in business longer that way. it may not be fast because now, I understand there's all these hurdles and things I need to overcome, and there's a slow path to progress on it. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to be able to stay in business as long as I want to, because I now know. Right. And I have people with me. So.
Right. That's the key.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about Launch SA's programs that they offer. I have had the opportunity to attend the Break Fast and Launch. I call it the capstone at the end, and it has always been phenomenal. Now, that's only one program that you offer. Talk about some of the other programs and who they are geared toward.
Yeah. So we have, over the course of that, I guess it would be 6 years now. Well, I guess we're coming on 7 now, right? Over the course of that time, we've started some stuff up. We've shut it down. We're not stuck in the mud, if you will. We'll look at it, see how effective it is and where the audiences are. And, maybe there's a problem that we can solve for the audience and, hopefully it actually doesn't need to recur. I mean, I think that'd be the goal of nonprofits, solve the problem and then don't exist anymore, but that's not necessarily how it works. And then for this market, luckily, there's a recurring cycle because there's always new entrepreneurs, right? So from the earliest days, the Break Fast and Launch program, we started that just because there was a lot of people asking for help in food and beverage, all segments like food products on shelves, coffee shop, food truck, if it was in food, that was what was up. And then we went around looking and was like, there's really no checklist. There's no, nothing that I can see that's programmatic, and not just in San Antonio, but kind of around the country. And so it didn't really make sense we couldn't send them anywhere. I guess that would be the real answer. So we built a program that I always say is tech inspired. So I was lucky at the time. I had friends that worked in or with or had previously been in Techstars that used to be in San Antonio. And I picked their brain, picked about 1 million people's brains at that point, just like, how do these accelerators work? Like, what's the real focus? And honestly, the biggest thing that I got out of almost all those conversations was, the education's great, but it's really about the people, right? Like if you put the right group of people together in the group, meaning the cohort, that's really what's going to carry the progress forward. Granted, those programs have an investment component, which we don't, and those programs provide a capital incentive or infusion, which we don't. So that's kind of where I started. So I actually brought in a bunch of folks that used to be in tech and kind of got them to talk about the quick iterative methods that you'd see in tech, like, fail fast, MVP, like all these like terms that you probably wouldn't hear in food and service, or food and beverage. And from there, like, we built up something that was really unique, and it served a purpose in it. And we actually saw some progress, and we just kept iterating on it. And so there just continues to be demand. San Antonio is a huge hospitality town. And, we've gotten inquiries from many parts of the country to say, like, hey, what are you doing? How can we do that too? Or is that going to grow into a thing that I can attend someday? And we've taken a few people from outside of San Antonio through it. Yeah, I think right now we got a guy from San Jose that's going through it. A while back we had a gal from Detroit that was going through it, yeah. And, there are nuances with it, so it's not always one-to-one, but... So anyway, I don't want to go too far into that hole of break fast and launch, but that's one of our most known programs. We noticed there was a gap for capital, really, I guess you could say competitions, but really the understanding of how to access capital in a more non-traditional sense. So not like a loan. I mean, I think there's a lot of education about how to get a loan, but how do you pursue investment? Right.
Angel funding.
Right. Yeah. It's mystical, right? Unicorns and all. I mean, literally, they mysticize it. And so we built a program called the Venture Challenge, and we were very fortunate to have had a number of different sponsors over the course of, I think it was the first 4 or 5 years for that program. And we built this education schema that really has you think about your goals in terms of a year that you've already achieved, right, that you've already completed, that you haven't completed. And what I mean by that is, let's say 2021 hits and you write out a statement, a one-page statement that says, this is what I achieved in 2021. You mark it with tangible goals, not like, hey, we grew sales by 100%. Like, you grew sales by $50,000 would be more tangible, right? You can hold yourself to that. Or we expanded our team to 4 people that, one was in sales and, that person helped us grow the Houston market or something, like real tangible components.
Smart goals.
Yeah. I mean, all of these things I think you'll find are fairly related to each other. There's, probably 78 different models that you can use. This one, we had a great influencer to help us compile. He had worked with the Dell Innovation Challenge, and so he really helped highlight some of the things that were really kind of nuanced. But so you take that one-page statement, then you break it down into a monthly milestone map that actually spells out each component. You attach that with a monthly cash flow statement that explains the ins and outs of where your money's coming from. And then you compose a pitch deck and a short, I think it was like 90-second or 2-minute video that just explains, like, almost like a marketing kind of thing.
Right.
No, quality was not important. It was really just like, can I understand what you're doing? And the competition, I'll always like to say, we built it not to be for competition's sake. So even the judges, the way they were all local investors of sorts, they'd been pitched on many different things, so that wasn't new to them. And their goal was to steward the money that we had, looking for the best return on investment, right? Because if you're seeking investment, one of my favorite mentors, his name's Dirk Elmendorf. He used to be with Rackspace, and I think he always comes with this. He's like, I give you money, and I'm looking for friends in return, and those friends are obviously
more money,
green, yeah,
yeah, right.
And so, I mean, because that's the thing. Like, no one gives you money to get no money. Like, if I asked you for $50,000 and said, would you just give it to me? I mean, maybe we're great friends, and you're like, yeah, sure. That's probably not an investment. But if you're an investor, you're like, well, what do I get? True. And that has to be how it is, right? Because no one wants to walk away with empty hands. So you have to articulate that. That's the key component. A lot of people think like, it's, man, my idea is so great, so unique that's going to be worth something on its own. But I need to know, if you're asking me for $50,000, just example, what are you going to do with that money? And then better, right? Like, a lot of people have ideas of what I'm going to do with that money. But better than that, how is that going to make you more money, right? And if you can't explain that, then there's nothing there. Like, True. And that's what it is. I mean, you go back to the drawing board and figure out, well, if I pay for another developer, right? How does that get me to the targets of making money? And a lot of people don't. I mean, it's not a thing you're educated on. I mean, you see Shark Tank and you can kind of glean some of those points, but it's all kind of theatrical.
Nebulous. Yeah.
Well, nebulous too. Yeah. It's still not quite clean, right? So we try to build it that way. So at the end of the competition, the judges would have a pot of money, but they would disperse it based on who they thought would make the most progress and have the most likelihood for return.
And that's an excellent program, because a lot of people don't understand what it takes to go to an investor. They may have, like you said, knowledge about going to get a loan, and even still, they're somewhat unknowledgeable because the loan process is so challenging for some, because you got to come with a P&L, profit and loss, balance sheet. You got to come with your marketing plan, or either some sort of plan that is realistic in its ability to return that loan or return on that investment that is given out to you. And a lot of people just don't think through it. Like you say, I have a great idea. I think it'll work. No one's doing this. And no, I promise you, someone else is doing it somewhere else, probably better than you, because they thought it out, or they've gone through so many stumbling blocks that they realize, oh, this doesn't work, but this does. And you're trying to figure out what will work and what won't. And without that guidance or that insight, or either that assistance, you have no clue. So I think that Venture Challenge also gives them that ability to think, something that they hadn't thought about. It's all in their head, but not on paper, which is critical.
Yeah, and that's so with that program, unfortunately, moving forward, we haven't had the sponsors and then also the facts of COVID life, and we were planning on iterating that to be slightly different, but we really haven't had the chance because of the environment. So currently, if you're interested in just looking at that education, it's online. We have narrated videos that walk you through it, and if you want to do any of the curriculum, like the whole point was, it wasn't just, hey, go do these things and come back with a finished product. It was, this is the challenge, right? Put your business through this challenge or set of challenges, but don't just sit out there trying to do it yourself. Like, ask us for help. I will literally sit down with you, go through every single piece, and I'll break it down as though I'm the investor. I'll ask you questions like, well, why did you say that? Well, where does this lead? Like, okay, you said you want this amount of money, but I'm not really seeing I don't understand your logic on how this is going to create more money, right? And that'll get you somewhere. And everybody that's done that program, whether they've won money or not, I've heard really great feedback from them. And just like, this helped me plan out a year, and it was executable irrespective of whether I had the extra capital or not. But now I knew what I was going to do if I had the money. Because I think, even if you're, and for what it's worth, this wasn't just new ideas. Any business could go through these things. You could be currently in business. You could be, 3-second old. I just thought of this, right? But as you put that together, you understand what you're going to do with this money, and it makes it all the more executable. When we're in business, we don't sit back and say, well, what if I had another $100,000, right? Usually you don't look for money until you need money.
Right.
And guess what? The flip side of that is no one gives you money when you need money. That's
Never.
Yeah. You go to the bank and you want money, and they're like, yeah, well,
give us 6 weeks.
Yeah, give us 6 weeks, or, it looks like you need the money. So, we'll probably wait until you have money in the bank, and then we'll give you the money. It's
right.
Like, I didn't really need it then. Well,
right.
Sorry.
Yep.
I mean, that's just, it's, even banks are investment vehicles, right? Like, they have to look at that, at the investment they're giving and figure out, well, will this come back with more money? Some people get frustrated with that. They're like, I don't understand. This is the best idea ever, and these banks hated me. And it's like, you have to look at it through an investor lens. It may not be the best.
And they usually don't.
No, unfortunately not. But that's a mindset thing. And the better or the more articulate you get in understanding it, the greater it becomes. Now, I wanted to drop one piece. You were saying earlier, oh, man, I have this idea. Nobody's doing it, right? I heard this piece of advice, and I thought it was really interesting, and I still kind of think of it today. A lot of people say, like, oh, I'm going to be first to market. No one's doing this. And I've heard many investors say the same thing. Well, if nobody's doing it, why are they not doing it? Like, what is like, you being first to market is not a good thing. A lot of people think that it might be. Well, there are certain industries that could be, but oftentimes if you're first to market, that means that no one understands what you're selling. And if no one understands what you're selling, that means you have to invest a lot in educating the client. And usually the first to market dies and the second to market thrives. And that's just the way it is. So don't, even if you have something super unique, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to work out.
True, because you may not have a market for it at all. I mean, when I think I'm going to date myself a little bit, pet rocks, when they first came out, it's like, who wants a pet rock? The Snuggly. Okay, to me, that was a backward robe, but it was ingenious in the sense of how it's marketed. It was only marketed to people at night.
Yeah.
It wasn't marketed during the daytime. It was marketed to people who slept on the couch watching late night TV.
Yeah.
But it's nothing but a backwards robe. I'm sorry, soapbox. But being first to market in that respect, that person or that group wasn't first to market with a robe. They just put a spin or a twist on an item that was already in existence and put a hood on it. Right.
No, that's true. I mean, like, this won't date me because I wasn't around at this point, but no, I'm just saying. The ATM, I think that the original ATM was invented in like 1898. I made that number up, but 18 something. And no one used it. Why? Because people were going to the teller, right? A lot of people think, I mean, you remember like the self-checkout kiosk, there was a lot of, oh man, why would I go there?
Hesitancy,
yes. Yeah, like I'm not getting paid to bag my own groceries or whatever. People get mad about it or whatever. But guess what? Like, yeah, it was a slow roll, but all of a sudden now it's here, right? Amazon, Prime, like, why would I could just go to HEB and like, okay, well, Look at HEB now; they're doing delivery and all this stuff because that's where it was going. It was always going there, right?
Right.
But hey, sometimes you're first, and people just are like, "Yeah, that's cool," but
you're ahead of your time sometimes.
Yeah, exactly.
And like you say, the first one dies and the second one thrives. That might be the title of the show. First one thrives, second one dies.
Yeah. I kind of pulled that one just out of thin air, so I never heard. It sounded like a good rhyme.
Oh, yeah, it does. I'm going to use that, Ryan. I'm going to use that, okay? We have Chris Hall from Pontum Financial here with us today. Chris, let's talk a little bit about team collaboration. How important is that to a business?
All you got to do is ask any business owner that's ever owned a business or done anything where it required another person. So I don't know anyone in history who has not had to rely on at least one other person at some point in time. That team collaboration becomes important, especially whenever you're a business owner, because you got to know that all your compartmentalized items or different things that need to be done at different times at different places are all going to get done. So the team collaboration that I'm referring to is the team of advisors that are serving you and working for you. Mainly that Power Five that we talked about a long time ago was the attorney, the CPA, the financial planner, all those different professionals that are brought into that room at least once a year to make sure that everyone's on the same page so they're moving toward the right goal.
Well, how can we reach you for more insight? Because this sounds very fascinating.
Best way to reach me is probably telephone. You can reach out 210-625-4845. We're located in San Antonio, right off 281 in Bitters. You can follow us on Facebook or LinkedIn. We also have a website that you can check out. It's pontumfinancial.com. That's PONTEM financial.com.
Chris Hall is a partner with Pontum Financial and offers securities and investment products and services through Waddell & Reed, Inc., WRI, member FINRA/SIPC. Pontum Financial is a separate entity from WRI. So why would a business need Launch SA? Why would someone even need you? What would be the purpose? I've heard a little bit about it, but I'm a new business owner because San Antonio has a huge market of people who are transplants. They're called retirees.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
And a lot of the military, because it's the military USA, has been in the service for 15, 20 years, 30 years, some of them. And they've only known how to give orders, how to take orders.
Yep.
So for them, would Launch SA be an excellent starting place if they wanted to launch another career, if they wanted to start a business?
So absolutely. And I'll start with the back end of that, specifically speaking to the military folks, right? Very thankful for all of the service that has been put in, obviously. It's something that I always look back on. And I was like, man, there was a time in my life where I really wished that maybe I had done it. Had family that did it, but I didn't. So thank you for doing it for me.
Yes.
I wasn't there, but speaking specifically to folks in military. So I have this really great example of a gentleman that we helped through our services. He was working with the Women's Business Center, which is located within our space. And then he, also would work with us on occasion. And he had a company called Combat Cups, and essentially he was taking like Yeti-style cups, and then I don't remember the exact way that he was doing it, but basically he could manifest whatever you wanted on the cup, and it was almost foolproof. Like it was like military-grade paint. It wasn't coming off. Like it would last forever. Something you could pass on in theory. And, I remember we talked a long time, and he said, his dream getting out of the military was to go, get an education and work in a highly educated scientific type field, I think it was, or maybe it was engineering, but something similar. And he thought that was what it was going to be, right? And he came out of the military. He got that education, went to the best school. He went and got what he thought was going to be his dream job, and he hated it, right?
Wow. And
the reason he hated it is because after coming out of the military, especially with everything that, over the course of, 20, 30 years, everything that's gone on, he came out with just this inability to really thrive in that environment, right? There's a different headspace. And so he found he was just more mechanical at this point. He wanted to do something for himself, not to take orders from other people or, have to deal with the bureaucracy. I mean, I know many people, even military folks, don't like bureaucracy, right? You just want to get stuff done sometimes. And that's the opportunity with entrepreneurship, is you get to carve your own path, right? You don't necessarily have to have like some great unique idea. I mean, as we mentioned before, backwards rope or burger restaurant, same difference. There's a billion of them, right? But what I've noticed is when I do see folks from military, it's usually not directly out of the military. I think people usually need that decompression point, kind of figure out what's going on in life, where are they at now, and it's
even
all
adjust
reasonable.
to a civilian life.
Exactly, right? And it's a couple years down the road where I see folks and they're like, I'm ready to start something. Sometimes it's a unique idea. Sometimes it's, I'm thinking about a franchise, or, sometimes it just depends. But military folk are awesome at entrepreneurship because they actually have structure. A lot of people that are entrepreneur direct without the military background, they lack structure, right? And they lack putting processes in place or understanding, the various elements and juggling those things. So in many ways, you have an advantage, right? So don't be afraid. It may not be right now. That's kind of what I'm getting at. If you find that you're just not thriving in whatever the environment you thought you would thrive in, maybe entrepreneurship is for you. So that I wanted to say specifically to military. But why do you need Launch SA? Well, the purpose that we serve, again, is this connectory, right? The original vision is that there's a lot of stuff in San Antonio. There's a lot of people that provide services in San Antonio. The gap is accessibility, right? Some of those services have a cost associated with them. Not a bad thing. I mean, some people say you get what you pay for. I guarantee you, put me on the same level with anything you pay for, I'll get you better service. That's just my competition aspect of it all. But everybody provides great service. I'm not going to knock anybody, but accessibility is a big one. And then direction, right? Yeah, there's a whole bunch of stuff, but when do I access what at what time? And that's where we're really good. Again, taking your vision and then creating a personalized roadmap that says, okay, here's the next couple steps in the journey, right? Go figure out what you learn from those steps, and then let me know what's the, where you're at after that, right? It's again, kind of a test, iterate. We want to know the progress and the mindset shift as you learn new things, right? Because that adjustment, maybe one day you sit in a seminar and you realize like, man, I guess I don't want to be a full production brewery. Like maybe I want to be a brew pub now, but I don't know anything about food. So what do I do next, right?
Right.
And that's where having that sort of counselor of sorts, and guide, Sherpa, whatever you want to call it, that's where the benefit comes from Launch SA. Is just as you change, as pieces change for you, let us help you reorganize them, and that'll set you on a better path, right? It's just, you can succeed at anything as long as you have the right path, right? Oftentimes people just don't know how to put the path together. So that's why you need Launch SA, is just let us help you build the path. Like, I guarantee you're going to learn some stuff.
Undoubtedly,
Yeah.
yes. And I know that you all have another program called Million Cups, 1
Yep.
million cups. Talk about that a little bit, because I find that it falls in line, at least in my thinking, along with the Venture Challenge, because it's talking about pitching, but it's in a different way that you pitch. Talk about that a bit.
Yeah, so the 1 Million Cups program, originally developed by the Kauffman Foundation out of Kansas City. They have chapters across the nation, and we were, I think, number 70. I think now they have 4,400 or something like that, a lot more now. So the genesis of that program is that, essentially sharing your ideas in community will breed progress. And the goal for us in hosting that program and really facilitating those points, yes, there is a pitch, right? This isn't Shark Tank. It's Think Tank is how I like to describe it. And it's really about putting your idea out there, whether it's completely formed or not, whether you're pursuing investment or not. and just, feeling out what does the community think, or what are their perceptions, or where do they see your gaps, right? I can't remember if this was psychology or not, but I think it was psychology, that they talk about that Joe Harry window, which is there's this 4-segment window where basically there's things you know about yourself, there's things that you don't know about yourself, there's things that other people know about you, and then there's things that people, like, nobody knows about you and you don't know about yourself, or something like that. I'm probably wrong, but basically there's 4 quadrants, right? And that's what it is. Like, if you only live in your mind, then, you're going to run into a lot more roadblocks that could have been addressed had someone else given you the second set of eyes. That's why they have proofreaders. That's the whole point of a business advisor or coach or any of that stuff, is because they can see what you can't see, right? Maybe they see an opportunity that you can't see. So that is it's a really strong community program. Sadly, because of the current environment, we're hosting it now once a month online. It was previously a once a week event on Wednesday mornings. Again, national program, and it happens across the country. So there is, if you do want to take the tour, quote unquote, or if you're in another city and you're just like, I wonder what this city's ecosystem is like, you can go to 1 Million Cups in many cities. I'm not going to say all, but many. And you can get kind of a taste of what's going on in that area. For us, it's a big driver for just building the community, right? Again, entrepreneurs not having a whole lot of opportunities to connect. That's a big gap, right? I mean, it's not like there's entrepreneur meetup or whatever. I mean, maybe there is. I don't know. I haven't been on meetup in a minute. So, but you have to find ways to connect with others, even if it's just for the inspiration to fill your cup, if you will.
Right.
And so I think that's part of the ethos, is building a community. I break down Launch SA in 4 points, and that's direction, education, mentorship, and in my mind, most importantly, community. Because if you don't have a community, the rest of it is, in my opinion, fairly irrelevant. So establishing that, and we have a similar program we used to do in the evenings at bars called Pitch Tab, where same kind of concept in that you throw your idea out there in 90 seconds, and then the crowd asks you questions or a few questions, and then somebody we give $150 gift card to, right? Just as the crowd votes, right? What is that for? Camaraderie. I mean, yeah, maybe you had a great pitch, but really what it's about is like, hey, we're all going down the same journey, and it sucks and it's lonely, and other people are there. Wow, I guess it's not so bad. Plus, they drink. That's cool.
Yeah, that helps.
Yeah. I like to say, if coffee doesn't do it for you, because 1 Million Cups is coffee-based, right? Then maybe some liquid courage will entice you to be out there in the world.
Pitch Tab.
Pitch Tab, yeah.
Pitch Tab, no doubt. Wow. Well, what's on the horizon for Launch SA? The city of San Antonio could be opening up soon. I mean, our governor has stated no mask mandate as of the 10th of March. But the city of San Antonio, because you're housed in a public facility, the public library, what do you see, or how do you see Launch SA reestablishing itself?
Yeah, that's a great question, right? I mean, we've made such great strides to adapt online. Realistically, I don't think that we're going to change that component. We're going to have to figure, and it's always been sort of on the back burner, like how do we create more access? Like, just like a food truck, right? You have wheels, you can be anywhere, but the bad part of that is you could be anywhere, and your customers have to figure that one out, right? Well, for Launch SA, that's the gift and the curse is we have this amazing center, accessible parking, really, in my opinion, and I've heard many other folks say it, just like a very inspiring space, right? And the energy is good. But on the flip, we're downtown. A lot of people don't like to go downtown. I mean, that's just, what it is. Some people don't have the access to go downtown. Maybe they haven't heard of us. So how do we address the entirety of San Antonio, which geographically is huge, right? From just the downtown center. So adapting, keeping the online component has always been in the SKU or the queue, but it just happened to manifest because of COVID, at least digitally. So investing more in that for sure. Down the road, though, while the state is open, quote unquote, the library isn't yet, and that's all going to be predicated by when library staff says it's open. Unfortunately, due to snowpocalypse or whatever you want to call it, snowvid, yeah, 2021. We had sustained a little bit of water damage within our space at the library, so there's going to have to be a little bit of repair there. So, a bunch of extenuating factors. My hope is that at some point within 2021, we're back in the space. Again, rebuilding that community, inviting folks back in. And, from all of the folks that I talk to in service industry and hospitality, I think we're all ready for it. I mean, people are clamoring to see their friends again, see faces they haven't seen in years again, or years, like months.
It feels like it, though.
Right. I don't even know what happened this year. I have no idea. I keep waking up to the same thing. So I think there's going to be a turnout. Like, hopefully it'll be a sustained turnout. I say I'm like half introvert, half extrovert. Well,
I think that's called ambivert.
Ambivert,
yes,
right? Well,
ambivert.
At this point, the introvert in me is, I think, close to dead. So I don't know how much more I can sit in a house and just be like, yeah, what do I do right now?
And how much Zoom can you handle, or
Yeah.
WebEx,
Oh my
or
God.
meeting team?
I'm not going to lie. There was one point, I look back at my schedule a couple months, from a couple months ago. And, COVID has really flipped the script on a lot of things. Like, we've had to get our hands dirty in areas that we weren't necessarily thinking of before, just because that's where the demand was, right? Like, and we're a part of Lift Fund. The partnership is between the city of San Antonio and Lift Fund. So, where Lift Fund has additional needs for support, Launch Say jumps in. Like, hey, you need help figuring out this grant program, or like, facilitating calls for that in San Antonio. Yeah, we're on it, right? And same across the board, where we need help, like Lift Fund jumps in. We have, the lending officers there that are always super supportive, Jonathan and Alma. They're really great people, my friends. And so, it's that give and take, it's its share. But, really, I think that we've been very fortunate to have grown from this, and it's just a matter of getting back out there, hoping people are coming back, which I hope that they will, and, just trying to address the need where it is. I feel like I had a different thought at some point, but
You got derailed?
my head does that.
I understand. Yeah. Well, how can someone get in touch with Launch SA right now? What's the best way?
Yeah, so really, so this is actually, I think I was on a track of you were asking what's on the horizon, right? So, and then I went to Lift Fund. Okay, so we are supporting a number of different programs just within Lift Fund as well. So the Helm program is new, and it's inspired by a grant partnership that we have with USAA. So that program is for existing businesses of minority background or female background that are looking to grow and find resiliency from COVID, or in through the affects of COVID. We also are putting together more series, more opportunities for mentors to connect virtually. Getting back in the space, hopefully there's that duality again of having that. And then in terms of getting in contact, this is where I think we have a new exciting thing that's coming. So we are adapting a system that will help facilitate in a more intuitive way folks to get their answers, at least the more initially simple answers, like, hey, what permit do I get? Or, where do I start for this? Or what do you recommend? I'm new to business. I don't know anything. So we're going to be rolling out a new system that engages with people. Right now, it's a form that we have on our website. So if you need support right now, I would recommend starting with the form. I think it's called the Request Assistance or Personalized Assistance form. All of those forms are reviewed by our team, and they are personally given consideration. We'll follow up with you, or we can schedule a meeting with you to really get the nuances of what you're trying to do. And then we'll make recommendations from there. But I would recommend starting from there. If you're unable to, then you can always give us a call, although our phone support is just going to depend on our availability because it is a small team, as I mentioned. So 210-598 6623. If you don't get an answer immediately, don't worry. We will return the call. It would be great if you left a message.
And what's the website?
The website is www.launchsa.org. And so, yeah, I mean, I would say start with that, right? Just reach out. Like, what's the worst thing that can happen? We're not going to ignore you. I mean, and if you get better direction, or if you just know you're not alone, I mean, that's a win in my book, right? Like, I would love to see everybody be a millionaire, but the reality is that's not everybody's goal. So whatever your goal is, I would love to see you get there. So let me just help you get there. Like, that's what I want. That's what we want to do, right? Like, there's no ulterior motive. I'm not sitting out here writing down ideas. Oh man, this guy failed. I'm going to take the Snuggie and run with it later. We just want to see you succeed, man. And that's why we've aligned folks that are down for the mission, right? Because it's hard, right? I remember a good friend and former president for Launch SA, Peter French. He always used to say, we want to make entrepreneurship easier because it's not easy, right? Mm-hmm. It'll never be easy. So that still sticks, right? It's not easy, so let's make it easier.
No doubt.
Yeah.
No doubt. Well, Ryan, I appreciate you coming on the show. I know our audience will love to know more about you, and they're going to go probably to the website for sure. But once Launch SA opens up, I'm sure you're going to get a plethora of people coming down there to say, yes, this is what we've been looking for.
Yeah, I dig it. I would be super pumped to see it. But, you know, again, if it's not right now for you, don't put pressure on yourself. We're there, right? Whether it's in the middle of the night and you just put the form in and we get back to you. If we can't meet you within the hours that you're thinking of, we will be flexible. That's the point, you know, accessibility. And yeah, just whether it's today or tomorrow or 5 years from now, like, get help. That's all that matters. Just get help. Don't do it alone.
No doubt. Yeah, it's lonely at the top, and it's even lonelier at the bottom if you don't know that you got other people surrounding you.
Exactly. Yeah.
No doubt. Wow. Well, thank you, Ryan, so much. Once again, Ryan Saltz from Launch SA. You all have a great day. For more information about any of our guests, or if you have questions and comments, please email us at admin@PlemonsCPA.com. And don't forget to check out our website, PlemonsCPA.com, for upcoming events and workshops in San Antonio.
David B Plemons CPA Inc. is providing this podcast as a public service, but it is neither a legal interpretation nor a statement of David B Plemons CPA Inc. policy. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by David B Plemons CPA Inc. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the Hustle, Juggle, and Struggle of Small Business podcast does not imply an endorsement of them or their concepts or any entity they represent. Views and opinions expressed by David B Plemons CPA Inc. employees are those of the employees and do not necessarily reflect the views of David B Plemons CPA Inc. or any of its officials. You should always consult your own investment advisors, attorneys, and accountants before making any decisions concerning your financial matters. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact our office.